I think this part of Tanya that we just learned is what sets apart Chabad from maybe all the other Hasidim, and for that matter, the rest of religious Jews, in how we view someone who isn't religious. Many people view someone who isn't religious, doesn't keep Shabbos, doesn't, eat kosher. How do they view them? As wicked people. After all, they're doing acts of wickedness. And this is the nuanced teachings of the Alter Rebbe, is that, yeah, of course that's wicked. Not keeping Shabbos, not keeping kosher. No question about it. For a Jew, that is. However, the individual you're talking about is someone who's not doing it deliberate. Even though they know that this is the Jewish thing to do. They're not, in today's day and age, no one is steeped in Jewish living in such a way that it's part of them. Even if they once even did it, and now they moved away from it. So, there, we got that guy. Oh, that person wasn't steeped in it. And definitely not a scholar. How many Torah scholars that are steeped in Jewish living went away from Judaism today? Back in the day, maybe. There definitely were. But even then, not that many. Why are people not observant today? Not because they were aware and they deliberately went against God. No. The pull of the outside world is so great, and that the pull, the inside world of Jewish living was so weak that therefore their sin is considered not as deliberate, even though they may even somehow deliberately are doing this. It's not deliberate. It's not considered deliberate. It's not considered deliberate. That's amazing. So therefore, since it's not deliberate, and as the term is used by the Rebbe, Tinik Shenishba, someone who's been kind of kidnapped by Jewish, the non-Jewish world around them, as a result, we have only one obligation to them. Love. Love them because they have a Jewish soul, because they're Jewish, and that's the only thing you need to do. Again, I want to emphasize that others say, oh, since their actions are wicked, they're wicked. And we say, no. The action is wrong, right? It's wicked in the sense that it's klipa, right? And it's definitely a terrible thing. But they're not wicked because it's not deliberate. They're aware and they know better. That's not really deliberate. Deliberate is that when you really were intimate with the teachings and steeped in it, Judaism in an intimate way, that now you move away from it. You know God, and you now are deliberately doing against Him. In our day and age, there's almost no one like that. I would suggest maybe there might be literally no one like that. Even when someone thought that they are learned, I know, and I'm an Epicurus. No, you're not an Epicurus. No, you just, the pull of the world around you is so strong, and the pull of your neshama and Jewish life is so weak, and was probably always weak. And that's probably why you went away, if you were ever engaged in it. So therefore it's not considered deliberate, inadvertent, and therefore what do? We just loving peace, pursuing peace, loving creatures, meaning that they're so lacking in a godly life that the only thing godly about them is that they're a creature of God. And that person, love them. And maybe because of that love, not in some circles, they will express love. Why? Because it's a tool to bring back somebody to Judaism. So they become their chesed case, as the term can sometimes, that's my chesed, I got to do chesed, I got to do kindness, so, you're my case, you're my caseload, and I'm part of my caseload that I've got to go and, fulfill because I've got, responsibilities and I get reward for this. Some people do that in social work and they get the reward of a paycheck for dealing with the people that they deal with. And here you get your paycheck from God that you're going to get a reward for this. Even the Alter Rebbe did mention that over here, but that's not the point. The point is that your relationship to this person is not to be kind to them so you as a means to an end. That's a secondary point. The reason why you are loving them is because they're your fellow Jew, and as you love yourself, you need to love them. That was the beginning of the chapter here. So just like you love yourself because of your soul, therefore you need to, then now ipso facto there will become, you will love this person because of their soul. In their observance they're so far removed, or removed at least. That's not what you look at. You're not looking at that part of the person, because that part of the person is not deliberate. It's considered inadvertent, even though they may be considering themselves as deliberate in what they are, doing. I know I got to keep Shabbos, but hey, it's golf day. They don't really know. There isn't really it wasn't really something that's real for them. Or kosher, whatever it might be. This is what we need to do only because it's your fellow Jew, period. Now, as a result, perhaps you'll be able to have an effect on them. But that's a secondary thing. I don't know if secondary is the right word. Secondary is not the right word. It is the consequence. Because when you truly connect to a person because they're your brother, they're your sister, they're family to you. Why are they family? Because you share the same root of a soul. And from that perspective, you're literally, not figuratively, but literally family. Wow, that's inspiring to a person. Then perhaps you'll be able to draw them close to Torah and service of God. And if you didn't, know that you did a mitzvah. You did a mitzvah of just loving that Jew because they're of their Jewish soul. That's a very powerful and beautiful idea. Let us have some conversation on this. Let us have some conversation. 2 question marks before you ask a question. And then ask your question, that way I could see clearly. That's a question. So far I don't see. I guess there's clarity over here. Again, I do want to emphasize that this is unique. Because other Hasidic Jews, they will look at their actions as being wicked, and they're defining the person by the action. Now the Rebbe says, no, we can't do that. That's inappropriate. That's incorrect. It's wrong. And that's where they make a mistake, a huge mistake. It has huge ramifications. Others kind of put that person in a middle ground. Not, middle ground. Potential. There's a potential here. There's a potential that maybe you can bring this person to Judaism. Right? So they're looking at the person as a potential to bring them to Judaism. Because they're still defining the person by their actions or lack of actions. right? They're not defining them by their soul. They're defining them by their religiosity. Oh, a religious Jew. Oh, okay, wonderful. Now you're part of the group. um, there's a potential that you might become religious, so we'll engage with you so we can bring you. Now, this has got nothing to do with your soul. It's got to do with your observance, your commitment. And that, Alter Rebbe is striking out. And that's why all the religious Jews need to learn Tanya. Just this chapter alone to set straight on how we need to look at another Jew. Sorry for so much more, but okay, I got some questions here. I just saw come up. Davida, how do we deal with family members that are less observant and do not want to change? Love them. It's not about you changing them. They have freedom of choice. Love them because they're a Jew, period. And if they will see that it's unconditional, that love, right? That's the issue with others. It's conditional. I love you conditionally that, you do another mitzvah, start keeping Shabbos and kosher, which is, the basics. You keep the basics, so then, Mishalonu, you're one of ours. You're one of ours because of the Jewish soul that you have. So it's unconditional commitment. And unfortunately, it's everywhere. Without learning Tanya, it's a conditional. It becomes conditional. Lori, growing up assimilated, I was taught that Orthodox Jews wouldn't consider me Jewish. You're right. That's the problem. Exactly the point that I'm making. Thank you for sharing that. Who are the creatures and how are they defined? David's asking. Creatures meaning that they have no sort of great value to them in their actions and their deeds and stature and so on, except for the fact that God created them. And that kind of, that's the sentiment. So this is what we're talking about, and this is the privilege that we have that as being connected to Chabad, whether we consider ourselves Chabadniks, friends of Chabad, learners from Chabad. Today, hopefully, we're all Chabad. And we become the mouthpiece, as I mentioned earlier, Chav Zayin Adar. Today, 30 years ago, the Rebbe's speech was taken away. So we need to be now the ones who continue the conversation, continue his teachings, his words, and to share with others, to bring other people into the classroom. That 30 years ago was the last time the classroom was held court. So, and so it's our privilege that we can now be that mouthpiece, and we can take this message, very important message. Please share it with others today, in honor of the Rebbe, in honor of 30 years. Now, if you don't know clearly how to share the message, maybe just share the class, or maybe, listen to it again so you could share it is even better. So you own it. It's yours. The message. You become a true messenger. Davida, my family is very tight-knit and loving, but we fight on our level of observance. How do I deal with the negative comments about my observance level from them? Just let it slide. Let it slide. Smile. Be happy. Know that you're serving Hashem and doing what Hashem needs from you. And don't let other people's problems be your problems. So if they have a problem with you, could be because they're feeling small in their own estimation because maybe they're not living up to what they could be. in their connection to Hashem and observance. Jane, can it be considered loving a person when you consistently correct somebody when they continually do wrong? Continually correcting somebody is probably not a healthy, good thing to do in a relationship, because at one point it goes on deaf ears. And not only that, there's probably a negative feeling towards the one who's always correcting. I would be careful with that and maybe stay away from that. But that's in Tanya therapy that we take that up. Sarah, what if I upset a fellow Jew unintentionally, but I still have this feeling that I want to help, even if it's just a small way to help them feel? And get that feel what? Okay, listen, we're all going to make mistakes, and we're going to fix it and move on. Don't let it get you down. What if a person constantly doesn't treat you right? How do you find love for that person? Tomorrow's class, we'll address that. Yeah, tomorrow's class, we will address that. Great question, Bella. Great question. But we will address it tomorrow, if you don't mind. Not that I'm using that as a ploy to get you back, but it is in tomorrow's class. It is, indeed. Michael, please share.
There is a story in the Gomorrah where the man sees the ugliest man in town and says to him, without having a bad intention, "You are so ugly." And the man answers, then complain about it at my creator.
Right.
And there's also, when I remember right, is also the word creature written. Is this a sign that when we only look at from the outside, because when somebody does mitzvah or does not mitzvah, it's like only if he looks good or if he doesn't look good, and we doesn't see the potential he could get into.
Right. Actually, one of the explanations that the Rabbi gives is that, I think it's the Rabbi, that by making such a strong statement to him, it was kind of helping him to own his life, that he should recognize that he needs to be a vessel for God in his life. But yeah, absolutely. Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, so Sarah continues her question, or hopefully just give them a feeling of going back slowly to the Jewish way they used to be, even if they're harsh to you. Yeah, so folks, you need to know that if you're more observant than someone who in the family, very often the family member will ridicule you, and you need to know that that's coming from a hole in their soul. It's not coming from the hole in your soul. Coming from the hole in their soul, that they're feeling empty. And when you look up to somebody who's greater than you, you have two ways to look at them, two basic ways. One is you look up to them and you try to learn from them and emulate things in their life so you could improve your life. And that takes humility to do that, right? To consider somebody greater than you that you could learn from and gain from. Ultimately, it should be from everybody, but that's a different story. Now, the other way that we often do is that what we do, we cut down the person. We cut them down to size, so that way I don't need to look up to them anymore and feel inferior to them in any manner. And now that all comes from an insecurity, and with obviously a lack of humility. So we need to know that sometimes we're being cut down is because of the insecurity that person is experiencing, whether consciously or subconsciously, most likely subconsciously, and they're not even aware of it, and therefore that's the way they act. Now, whether you need to make them aware of it, excuse me, or not, that's a different, conversation. But for ourselves, what's important to realize is that it's not about me and my lack. So, you know, don't take it personal. It's their issue. It's their thing. So it's not necessarily about you. That's one level. Now, if you want to go deeper and you want to take it personal in a way that you can grow from it, fine. But not take it personal in a way that you are kind of brings you down. If it brings you down, then it's not for you. If you are strong enough to hear a message and know that it's not coming from a good place, but for some reason God wanted me to hear those words, so take those words and in whatever way, in that manner that you can take it, to use it as a catalyst for growth. That's great. But it's not, that's only if you yourself are extremely healthy and secure in who you are as in serving God. If you don't have that security, so then just know where they're coming from. I hope that's clear, because that's actually quite a profound idea and a distinction on what to do in our lives when we're, confronted with such people. And anybody who's engaged in their Judaism and doesn't come from a Jewish, a family that is observant, then this is often what's going to happen. John, if we approach every one of our fellows with great humility and love, does that not fulfill the mitzvah? Yeah, I mean, tomorrow we're going to learn more about where there is that instance, which would be very seldom in most people's lives, right? So, where there is a element of hate, but that will be tomorrow. Yeah. That will be tomorrow. All right. Amazing. You're all amazing. And as I've said many times, and I say again, my inspiration. And I mean that you come day in, day out to learn Tanya. Listen, I got to do it, because if I don't do it, you're going to think, uh-oh, where's the rabbi? What happened to him? Fall off the wagon. Yeah. Folks, our prayers to the Jews in Ukraine and the Ukrainian people at large, and those beyond that are affected. People in Russia, Jews in Russia, are now going to be affected because of all the sanctions and so on. So our learning today in their merit, and please give some tzedakah, charity, if you can help out. That would be amazing. Actually, through Chabad.org, they're collecting. As a matter of fact, I gave yesterday. So if you can do that, that would be great. And I'm sure will definitely help the lives there. All right. Tomorrow to continue. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zich and Kadesh in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Have a wonderful day. Don't forget Rambam today at 1 o'clock. Thank you for joining. Be well.